Hi, Stage 3. This video is designed to help you with this assessment that you're about to do. As you would know, it's a working scientifically assessment. And I know that you've learned a little bit about using the scientific method, all these things here we've been talking about. And we're going to use the scientific method today to try to find out something more about electricity, maybe something that we don't know yet. And at the same time, your teachers are going to assess you on how well you can do these things here. Okay, that's not the only thing though. We've also going to be working collaboratively, which means working together as a team. And we're going to have to try to do all of these things as well so that we end up looking like this guy here. Well, hopefully a little bit more handsome and maybe with a nose, but you get the idea. These are the sorts of things that we need to do if we're going to work well together as a team. Okay. Now, to do an investigation, of course, we're going to need a whole bunch of equipment. Okay, so here's our equipment list that I put together for you. Now, we've got some electrical components, of course, because we're doing an investigation about electricity. So we have some wires just here. Okay, you'll get at least 3 of those. You'll get a cell or a battery, and you'll also get a light bulb. Okay, so some basic circuit components there that you'll need. Also, a bag of everyday items, which I have here. Okay, and I've just listed them down here as well. So we've got a piece of felt, just like that. Okay, yours might be a different colour, same material though. We have a wooden stick. Again, you could have a different colour, but mine's green, paddle pop stick there. A coin, it won't be a gold one, okay, so no one's going to steal it. It is a silver coin here, all right, not worth very much. You've got a rubber, okay, just an everyday eraser. A little bit of paper. We've got a paper clip in here as well. Hard to get out, there it is, okay, hard to see. Very shiny, probably made of metal, I think. We also have something else shiny in here, some aluminium foil that you might use in the kitchen. And last but not least, something else you might find in your kitchen. We've got a plastic fork here, or you might have a plastic spoon in your bag. So I guess this is the equipment that you've got available. You've got to think about now, what are we looking for? What are we going to test here? What are we going to find out? We know a lot about this stuff already and how that works. But how do we include this stuff? And why would we want to include this stuff? And what would we find out, perhaps, from using these things in an investigation? Well, that's what you've got to decide and come up with as a team, but also think about yourself. Okay, well, we're almost finished introducing what we have to do, but let me give you some tips on how to succeed. Okay, a little bit hard to read. That's just how to succeed. There are 5 things that you need to do to achieve success. Firstly, you need to follow instructions on the assessment sheet. So you should already have your 2 assessment sheets. Here they are. Plenty of instructions there. Read them carefully and make sure you do what's on them. When you get to this little symbol here, that means you're going to watch the next section of this video, and I'm going to explain something else to you. Of course, you're going to need to work and think hard yourself. That's what scientists do, but they also need to work well as a team, and so you're going to have to do that as well. And lastly, you're going to need to know the rubric so that you can achieve success. You know what you actually have to do well. So what we're going to do now is going to have a quick look at that rubric. Okay, so this is what the rubric looks like, and you can see there's a lot of words there, but really on the left-hand side here, there's only 3 categories. So it's fairly straightforward. If you look with me at the teacher's assessment, this category here, this is all about the working scientifically stuff. And you can see I've highlighted the C column here, because that's what we expect you should be able to do. And it says here, the student was able to work with their team to design a reasonably appropriate investigation and to gather data. they showed some ability to make a hypothesis and conclusions on their own. Okay, so that's all about working scientifically. And if you can do that, then we're pretty happy with that. If you wanted to get a B or an A even, you would have to look at making sure those hypotheses and conclusions were really strong and based on the data that you gathered in the investigation. And probably many of you could do that. So really give that a go. Now, the next thing is a self-assessment, which is to do with being a relational and collaborative contributor, which is our Edinburgh Learner Profile. And it says back over here on the C column, I worked well with the group at most times. I made some efforts to help the group to complete the task. So we think that most of you, if not all of you, will be able to do that. And if you wanted to improve your grade, well, over here at the B column, you're working well with the group at all times and being respectful and making some very helpful contributions. And over here, you might be extremely respectful, very focused, and very helpful and encouraging to the other members in your group. Now that there is a self-assessment, so we want you to rate yourself on how well you worked with your team. And just underneath that, the other members in your team are going to have a go at rating you in terms of how well they felt you did. And it's the same, basically the same scale, okay? So at the end of the assessment, you'll rate yourself and the other members in your group will rate you, and you will also get to rate the other members of your group or your team. So there are 3 people assessing in this test. It's the teachers with the working scientifically, and then it's you and also your team members assessing your own group work and how well you work together as a team. Okay, so that brings us to the end of looking at the rubric, which means we're ready to start the assessment. Right, so take out those assessment sheets now, and we're going to look at the first 3 questions, and this part you have to do by yourself. It says individually complete them. We're going to start looking at step 1, which says question. So this is very important. What is the question that you think you're going to investigate in this little experiment? Now remember that the question, we have to be able to test it using all the equipment that you've been provided, and it has to teach us something else about the way electricity works. Okay, we have to learn something new about electricity through this investigation. So what question could you ask that will allow you to learn something new using the materials that you've been provided with? So you write that question down here in step 1, and then once you've done that, you can think about what the investigation is going to look like and then predict what you think will happen in that investigation. Okay, don't try and be too complicated at this point. Just a simple prediction. I think this will happen. I think this won't happen. That's all you need to say. But then we get down to step 3, and this is important. This is your hypothesis. This is where you have to think of a possible scientific explanation for the prediction that you've made. So think carefully about what you know already about electricity and the way that it works in a circuit, and see if you can hypothesize about why it's going to work in a particular way using the materials that you've got in your materials kit. All right, so take some time now to do that. Just pause the video and work your way through steps 1, 2, and 3. And when you've finished that, unpause and we'll talk about what to do next. Okay, so now you've just made your way through steps 1, 2, and 3. You are almost ready to get together with your team and continue on with step 4 and 5 as well, and also number 6. but don't go over to your team just yet. Wait for your teacher until they give you the instruction to gather together. Let's have a quick look at what we have to do together with our teams though. In step 4 here, we have to design our investigation. So you're going to talk to your team members about your question and decide or agree upon the question that you're going to be asking. And then obviously you're going to have to work out how your investigation is going to look. So here, draw a label diagram of how you're going to use the equipment to carry out your investigation. And if you can, use the proper symbols for a circuit diagram. So we want a diagram down here in this space. Don't forget this little question down the bottom here as well, to talk about that with your team and put down an answer for that. Once you've designed your experiment, you're ready to actually carry it out. And then as you investigate, step 5 says investigate and gather your data. You can use the table below here to help you organise your observations. So down here we've got one column which says material or item tested, and over here observation. So that might give you a bit of a clue about what it is that you're going to be testing here and how. And then step 6, when you've gathered all that data, it says talk about that with your team. Did anything surprise you? Whose hypothesis could be correct? And don't forget to listen to what other members in your group have to say. That's going to be really important through this team part of the investigation, that you do listen carefully to each other and that you cooperate well, that you are respectful, and that you work well together to try to complete this investigation in the time that you have. So while you're waiting for the teacher to give any instructions, maybe you can go back and have a look at the materials that you're going to be having to use again. Have another think about that. Have a look ahead and see what the last few steps are as well. And very soon you're going to be getting into your teams to commence step 4, 5 and 6. So you can pause me now, and when you've finished your team investigation, then you can click back on this video and find out what to do next. So if you're watching this section of the video, you should by now have carried out your investigation, collected the data and discussed it with your team, and talked about anything that surprised you, or whether your hypothesis was confirmed or not. And we're now up to step 7, which is where you should be back without your group, by yourself. You need to complete these last 2 steps individually. So step 7 is where you write down here your conclusions. First of all, thinking back to your hypothesis that you made at the beginning. Do you think it was correct? What does the investigation tell you? Does it tell you it was right or not? And why or why not? What is it about the data there that lets you know whether your hypothesis was right or wrong? And underneath here, hopefully you've learned something new about the way electricity works. What can you now conclude about electricity after doing this investigation? And put your answer down here. So here, looking for some interesting and very logical conclusions that you can make from your investigation. And finally, step 8, can you think of any changes you could make to improve this investigation? So if certain things didn't work out very well, maybe the first time, is there something that you could improve, something you could change to make it even better if you had to do it again? Okay, have a go at step 7 and 8 now yourself, and pause this video, and when you're finished, click back on, and there's one last instruction. Well, congratulations, you have just about finished this assessment. There is only one more thing to do, and that is to take these 2 assessment pages up to your teacher, and they will collect it to assess your working scientifically. At the same time, they're going to give you a piece of paper which will allow you to assess yourself and the other members in your group on how well you worked collaboratively. Now you're going to take that and do that by yourself, and then you're going to hand it back to your teacher again. And no one else is going to see that data that you have written down. No one's going to see your self-assessment except for the teacher. No one else will in your group will see how you have rated them because that's all going straight back to your teacher. So enjoy doing that last little self-assessment and group assessment. And once again, well done on completing this investigation and this assessment. And I hope that you've learned something new along the way about the way that electricity works.